There's one thing that when working on VA disability claims for yourself that can be such a pain is when you get to the 90% mark, but you have no idea how or why you're not at the 100% mark. And there's kind of a lot of things that can go into this. If you're new to my channel or new to VA claims, feel free to subscribe. But basically, everybody in the world has talked about this before previously on every YouTube channel, but the 90% mark is, I would say, fairly easy to get to if you have multiple service-connected disabilities, but the 100% mark seems to be a really big hurdle. But that extra percentage is a game changer. It's a $1,400 difference from 90% to 100%. So what does the VA actually look for with 90% versus 100? Why is it so hard? And what can you do about it? So in this video, we're going to talk about the strategies to get out of this 90% range. And if you're looking to either start a new claim and you're like, oh, well, I'll take any percentage, and then you kind of realize you might actually get to 100%, you might want to watch this video to understand when you get to 90, then get a denial, or you need to add something, you're going to reopen your claim. You're going to reopen Pandora's box, and you might want to have a little bit of information on your side. So VA math is not straightforward. And every time you have a diagnosed condition, the highest diagnosed rating is the initial disability parts, and then the VA takes the healthy percentage, so 90% disabled, 10% healthy, and they will then rate the next condition under that off of your health marker, if that makes any sense at all. So to use this example very quickly, 90% rating will be 90% disabled, 10% healthy. If you have another claim that adds up to, let's just say 40%, they will take 40% of the 10% healthy mark that you have left, your 10% healthy left, and that will be 4%. And that 4% is added to 90. So then what do you have? You have 94%, which does not round up to 100. So you might kind of see how this works. When you hit 90% even, mind you, there's a few different 90%, right? If you're at 86, 87, 88, 89%, they round it up to 90%. But if you're at 90% clean by itself, anywhere from 90 to 94, they round down to 90%. So if you're on the low end of 90%, you might not really have a big chance of getting to 100%, or at least that easily, right? If you're on the high end, if you're up to 92%, 93%, realistically, you need to analyze and say, okay, I need another 30% total. What is another 30% to me? Is it worth reopening up my claim, re-looking at my case, having the VA get the opportunity to look at everything that I have just because I want to get 30% more, right? Is it worth it? Okay, so let's jump into what we can actually do proactively to see if you want to make the decision to go from 90% to 100 and reopen a claim, or is there other strategies we can use? Let's talk about everything. All right, the absolute first thing that you're going to do is you're going to look through your appeals and decision letters very, very carefully, because most people don't read all of these. So if you were denied something, carefully read through the denial and also the approvals to pinpoint anything that might have been missed, any piece of evidence that you were like, wait, I did talk about it at the C&P exam, or I did have this. Why is it not annotated? How did they give me a 20% rating versus a 30, 40, or 50 for one of these things? What gives? Because here at this stage, this is the biggest one. You have a time sensitivity to either file a higher level review, a supplemental claim, or even go to the board directly. Now, each of these are different. I make a ton of videos on this channel. Check out one up here that I'll have that talks about this, but these are different processes. One of them is relooking at all evidence, higher level review, and that's something where you are saying, I think I have everything actually in there. I want someone to relook at it. I'm not going to add any more evidence. Or you could do something like a supplemental claim where you're like, you know what? I had some missing piece of evidence. You have a short window of timeline to submit more, then have the VA relook at that as well. Look through your decision letter, because that is the first thing that is an indicator of what you may want to do, because you might be able to get that increase to 100 by going back and submitting the proper evidence up front on one of your items rather than getting in denial, waiting too long, and then having to open it back up again. Okay, so the second thing I suggest doing is reassessing all of the things that you have that are already approved. And the reason that you're reassessing this is because if you look through everything that you have in the past, you're going to look for if you have areas where you can have increases. If you have something that is approved at a 0% rating and has gone anywhere worse in time, guess what? You are now going to get a 10% rating or higher. It might really be in your favor to look at all of your ratings and see what might have gotten worse. What have you gone to the doctor for more frequently in the last year or 6 months or whatever that may be? The VA allows increasings when your condition has gotten worse or if there is a schedule change. For example, mental health now will change and look very differently this year than what the rating criteria look like. If you want to make an increase for mental health, it's probably in your best interest to wait for the changes and then make the increase then, because it will be a little bit of a different process. That's a good opportunity for a lot of people to reevaluate where they are in life with their service-connected disabilities. Okay, so what should you do? You should look at all of your conditions, review all of them, and make an initial intent to file. Just like I've talked about also on my channel, make an intent to file date so you have that in line, you're ready to go. And then you worry about what you need because you have a whole year to figure out proving that you do have an increase in that disability. There is issues that have continued and developed into getting worse. So the third thing that you can do is ask for secondary conditions. And you're not just asking the VA, you're submitting another claim, right? So this means you've already gone through the claims process at one point and you have other conditions that you are diagnosed with that you are trying to link to service-connected conditions. And this can be a little bit tough. So I say this is tough because I don't think as many secondary conditions do get approved, but you have to look at everything that you have, right? It is a case-by-case basis for everything that anybody in the VA talks about. Nobody on YouTube can say, this is a guaranteed way to work, this is a guaranteed way to make money. Everybody's case is different, and every person involved in your case is also going to be different. Second conditions can be extremely powerful though. If you have had lower back injuries, you're probably going to have some nerve pain up your back or possibly down your back into your legs. I have had both. I had service connection for sciatic nerve pain in one leg and service connected for my back, but not my left leg. And my left leg started having more issues. My neck more recently has also started having more issues. So to define this, these are injuries or illnesses that stem from something that is service connected or has gotten worse because of something service connected. There is those two options when it comes to secondary conditions. I think what makes these hard to validate and be very sincere about is that it is strongly considered that you need to get a nexus or a nexus letter, even more so, directly for a secondary condition, because you're going to have to prove that something else affects another part of your body. And the best way to do that is to have an MD back you up. They write a nexus letter saying that you've talked through this, they've given you some sort of assessment, some sort of diagnosis, either the full part of the diagnosis or this part, and they're going to write on your behalf and say, least as likely as not, or guaranteed, more likely, whatever it may be, to show that that is actually connected to the other condition. So the fourth thing that can get you from 90 to 100% is leveraging presumptive conditions. And these, I'm going to be completely honest, should be the easiest conditions to claim. If you've been deployed into a combat zone that has fallen under the PACT Act from all sorts of eras that we have, you should not have to prove an in-service event for that condition as long as you have a current diagnosis. The VA automatically assumes certain types of illnesses or ailments that will come from being exposed to certain regions of the world on deployments. Now for this, you just need two things: a qualifying service time in one of these PACT Act areas. These change depending on your years of service. There's some for Vietnam, some for Gulf War, and some for the global war on terror. You'll have to look at where you were deployed. It's reflecting this somewhere on a DD-214, that is one of those critical areas during a critical time, and you need a current diagnosis. You do not need to connect the dots any further than that for this to be approved. For example, I was exposed to some sort of toxic chemicals in the Middle East, and I've had a lot of bad sinus problems. I actually was able to produce a memo from my unit and say I was exposed along with I was just in the region, which I think really helped my case, but then I've had sinus issues. I really have since then. And so I didn't have to say much more than that when I went to my CMP exam for sinusitis. So that's just one example. Look under presumptive conditions list. I can link it below so you can actually look and see what everything falls under for the dates and the ailments, because they're not all the same depending on the date that you're in as well. So the fifth thing that can get you to 100%, at least monetarily, is going for TDIU. So TDIU is total disability individual unemployment. If you are not at 100%, but you are not able to work, if you are not able to gainfully be employed, you can get paid at 100% while still being under 100%. This counts more so if you're in the range of about 70% rating. It's not really going to help to go under TDIU if you're at about 30%. I don't actually think you can, but you're able to submit for TDIU, but there's some limitations that come with it. You are paid 100% PNT. You are paid that, but this does not actually mean that you have static and permanent nature for your 100%. This just means that you're going to be paid that. And it can be for an allotted amount of time. The VA can relook at your case. Along with that too, you're not actually able to work at a full capacity. You are legally not allowed to make a certain amount of money under TDIU. So this can be a little bit tough. And if you're at 100%, you might not be working anyways. I've substantially had to change my lifestyle on what I work on to alleviate certain stressors that I have that are related to my disabilities. So if you're unable to work, TDIU is a really good option, and it might be the middle ground to bring you between 90 to 100 until you maybe refile that claim to get yourself to 100 and out of TDIU itself. So I hope this video was helpful. If you want to learn more about how to even file a claim at the beginning, I do have a full course. The link's below. Everybody on YouTube gets 20% off. So please go check it out. I go through extensive areas on how to write your claims and your letters and everything else that you need to turn in. And until then, watch the next video.